Hello, my name is Eric Humphrey, and if you've watched any of my videos posted here on YouTube on my page, especially the first one I posted, the Real Erik Da'Raven, then you know that I am the individual who's claiming that the comic book was based on him. Um, it seems to me after posting on here that a lot of people have a hard time accepting that fact. I understand that. A lot of people lie and deceive to feed their own egos or to obtain some type of popularity. I've never been that one. Um, I like to be in the group. I don't care to be the center of attention. Um, in high school, I had my little bout with fame when I was on TV for a kind of like a commercial for Carrie Roop's Taekwondo school that was on PM Magazine. Um, After it was aired on TV, all I got was a bunch of unwanted attention and negative responses from people I went to school with back in 1984. Um, you know, people who people choose certain occupations in life that give them notoriety and fame. Not all of them even like it. I saw it as being nothing but a headache. I did try to sue or find an attorney to sue Obar when I got out of the Navy, and the whole comic book and stuff, movie rights being sold out from under me without my permission is one of the reasons why I got out of the service. But I was unable to get an attorney to believe me so that I could sue Obar back then, and I just gave up on it. I tried to write about it back then, but I couldn't remember a lot of things. It was way too stressful and too much for me. Um, but in part, before I go any further in this video and the others, I have my a Bible here, okay, and some other books I hold dear. I'm not big on Christianity. I've read the Bible and stuff like you see here the Sefer Yetzirah and the Tanakh, which so. Before we begin, I'm going to put my hand on this Bible here, since that's what we do here in America when we testify in court or in testify in court. I'm going to raise my right hand. I, Eric Humphrey, do solemnly swear to tell the truth and nothing but the truth. So help me God. If I deliberately attempt to deceive or lie in these videos, may I be damned to hell for all eternity. I did that because I want you to understand the seriousness of this for me. Um, as a kid, I read comic books, but I read horror comic books. I wasn't big on heroes and stuff. I've never idolized anybody or hero worshipped anyone. You know, I look up to people for their talents and abilities. I've always liked people like Einstein, Nikola Tesla, my favorite. Um, Architect Frank Lloyd Wright. Just love that man's work in architectural work. The lady who did the architectural work out in Arizona along the Grand Canyon. A lot of artists, Da Vinci and so forth, music, Mozart, Beethoven, Bach, Tchaikovsky, groups, all kinds of groups, from America to Led Zeppelin to Bauhaus to the Pixies and Soundgarden, Nine Inch Nails, Jim Croce, and so forth. Just I have a wide range of music I like. Not big on country, but I do love Johnny Cash, and one of the reasons I dressed up in black back then was partly because of Johnny Cash. He did it against injustice. I did it against injustice too, to a certain degree. But there was more to it than that. Um, I've written out a list of talking points here on my computer to keep me on track because what I'm talking about and anything involving Tammie, um, I get emotional about it and I get scatterbrained a bit. Um, like one of the first things I wrote here is, please remember, we all have a right to our own lives and our own stories, especially those moments that have defined us, those things that affect us deeply, that change our character or our perspective or views on life. When I allowed Obar to make this comic book based on me, I did it because I felt sorry for the man, because he was crying at the bar over some friends of his that had died the few nights before. I'll get to that when and talking more about the night I met Obar. When I talk about my book, more or less what I'm going to shoot a video on here um, is it's not going to be exactly the same as the book I have written. My book has been completed. It just needs to be properly edited. It was published for a period of time, but due to I felt misled by my publisher and the editing job being poor and them not living up to their end of the contract, such as they were supposed to have a web designer, they were supposed to have someone, a graphic designer for the cover of my book, and a photographer's mate to photographer to take author's photo. And they had none of those. I found out after I signed a contract with them. I waited, my book was out last year between March the 13th to around mid-May, and they had me wait a month, 2 months, and 2.5 months to get a report from them on how many of the books sold. Instead of sending me out proper documentation from each of the websites my book was sold on, they just sent me out a type out of how many books I sold and how many of their books, other books they published, have sold, which I didn't need that information. I've had a falling out with them. I want nothing to do with them. That's why my book is not available at this time. Now, before I get further into this, since we're already 7 minutes and 20 some odd seconds into this, James Obar, because you have a hard time believing me that I'm telling the truth, and I'm having a hard time getting photographic evidence and statements from people from my past, and tracking down individuals. I'm not a private investigator. I have not been able to track down all the people from my past who may or may not have photographic evidence, especially individuals I hung out with at City Club. I have no way of tracking these people down unless I can get my story out in the media and get these people to contact me personally with information, which I would like to get statements from them, affidavit, statement, and or photographic evidence if they still have it. But the best way you can go about proving that I am telling the truth, and remember what I'm about to tell you, you got to ask yourself, how would I know this information if I was lying? James Obar has claimed on Wikipedia and on his own sites and other sites I've seen, he has claimed that he started the comic book back in 1981. I have to thank him for this. Thank you, Obar, for being such a liar and a moron. I really appreciate it, because you've given me some of the best evidence I can probably have. The comic book was not started until Halloween night, 1988. It'd be October the 31st of 1988. The very first drawing he did was that I am aware of. The very first one was a watercolor of me. He called me the next morning on November the 1st, 1988, around 10:20 in the morning. I told him not to call me till afternoon around 2, but he called me very early in the morning and woke me up, because he I don't know, he's very rude, not very considerate individual, and he told me he had stayed up all night working on a watercolor of me. I believe this is the first cover of the comic book The Crow, on the very first issue, because it resembles me the most, and especially because it shows the collar of the leather coat I used to wear. Now, I had somebody tell me that this looked brand new to them. They have to be a moron. It's very old. I bought it back in 1984. It's kind of torn apart. The armpits are falling out. It's ripped. It's been used throughout the years. Okay, but if you look at the collar, and if you look up the first issue of the comic book The Crow, you're going to notice that the collar is just like this, almost like a priest collar. And you'll see little lines that he's drawn on it, but you can't really tell what that would be. Well, now you know. It's the clasp for the neck. Personally, I take that as being evidence in part by itself and because it looks like me. Because it is me. Okay? Honestly, I would have really preferred if James O'Barr would have just kept our agreement. Dedicated the first issue to Tammie and Grimes. Period. That's all he had to do. I didn't want any money from his comic book. I didn't want any money from this because all of it to me is negative. Nothing good came out of Tammie's death. My beloved friend and fellow pantomime. We were mimes in the 4-H pantomime troupe from the fall of 1979 until Tammie's death on January 11th, 1982. But him making this claim means that all the artwork that he claimed to do between these years, between the year of 1981 all the way up to 1988, are going to be on paper. All of it will be on paper from 1988. Every single thing. I've also noticed, I've been searching, I've looked all over on all these different websites, eBay, Amazon, comic book websites, comic book artist websites that sell their artwork, and I have not been able to find one single piece of his artwork that is dated from 1981, 1982, 83, 84, 85, 86, or 87, because there is none, and he hasn't even bothered to put dates on any of these. But if you take a drawing of his that he claims to have done, that he has signed and dated that he did from back then, and you have the paper tested, the paper will come out to show that it was all done on paper from 1988, because that is the day he started. Period. That is a fact. Now, part of why I'm telling you this, I'm telling the public this, but I'm also speaking to anybody who might take interest in my story and want to prove or disprove if I am telling the truth or not. Simply go to Mr. O'Barr, ask him for these types of drawings when he did them back then, and if you'd like to have one to test to disprove me, you're going to find that I am telling the truth. Second, if you're in the media and you'd like to talk to me, I am more than willing to take a multiple lie detector test, and I ask you to please invite O'Barr to do the same, and I'll guarantee you that he will turn you down. The man is a coward. He will not. He won't, and he knows he's lying. I've been in contact with Mr. Reed in the past, and I do have him on email. He asked me not to share these, but since that man's helping to cover it up and lying too, James O'Barr, or Mr. Reed, more or less told me that James O'Barr was the biggest liar he has ever met. A girl who helped me do research helped me to write my book to help keep me on track and to do research on O'Barr, because I was trying to track down 4 friends that were with him the night I met him. Ashley DeRoche, she convinced me to go into a comic book convention and confronting O'Barr. He hadn't been back since I confronted him back in 2005. I confronted him, and he lied right in front of his friends, saying he'd never been to City Club, and his friends all looked at him. Some of them were like, really? And he had to backtrack and say, oh, yeah, I went to City Club. The guy tried to lie and cover his ass, but he couldn't. But this last time, I went a few years back, I went to a comic book convention, and she talked to O'Barr. One of the videos I have on here is her talking to O'Barr. And then her talking to Mr. Bloodworth, who sat with Mr. O'Barr through several comic book conventions. She taped him as they talked to him, and he literally said that he personally takes anything O'Barr says with a grain of salt. That more or less means the guy lies habitually. He even says that he tells a different story every time about where he got the idea. And he does that because he's lying. He doesn't stick to his story and can't stick to his story because he's lying when he says he created this all on his own. Excuse me. Um, Obar did all the artwork in the comic book. He it's all his story. All I provided was the main character, an idea and everything behind the main character. When Mr. Obar used to call me at my house, he was asking me about my childhood and my past. I was telling him about my childhood and my past so he could give more depth to his character and have more understanding with it. Now, I didn't mind working with him on this comic book, but he kept calling my house. I told him, give me a few months. See, when Tammie died, I went crazy. I wanted to kill the guy who killed her. I went over there that Halloween dressed up that way as a mime to kill them. To kill him, I was going to kill everybody at his house and 4 of the other bullies around our neighborhood before I went to my favorite tree out in the woods in the back of our neighborhood and blew my brains out with a .22 pistol. But he had moved away. After that, I just found myself going out on Halloween and protecting people. Now, mainly when I first started doing this, I was in Pontiac. I did this between the years of 1982 in Pontiac till 1985. 1985, was the last time I patrolled around here looking for 4 individuals: Steve Moore, Mark Moore, Louis and Taylor Chase. They like to jump guys and beat them up. I had gotten myself in great shape, learned how to fight, and came to Pontiac looking for these guys to beat the shit out of them. Only one I could track down was Steve Moore, but he wouldn't meet up with me, and he's a coward. But I wanted all 4 of them at the same time. I didn't want to fight one at a time. I wanted all 4 of them at the same time. But that didn't happen, and that year was also the first year I went to City Club, and after that I just started patrolling around City Club every Halloween and every Halloween party. So sometimes I'd go out twice, and I'd go around looking for individuals who were in trouble or accosting, picking on, or assaulting others, and I'd beat the shit out of them. Most of them I put in the hospital, some I did not. I just left them poorly bruised, maybe a few broken ribs or so. Forgive me for pausing. I've shot this video several times, but it never comes out the way I want it. This will be the last time I'm shooting it. However this comes out, I'm posting it. So I've also other evidence I've tried to gather on Obar, such as tracking down those 4 individuals that he was with. First, I needed to track down the funeral. The night I met him, he said he'd just come from a funeral, and he mentioned this girl Shelley. He said, he was in love with this girl Shelley, and then he mentioned some other girl named Elizabeth who got hit by a car and ran over. But he, it was these 4 friends. So since he told me they had just died a few days before, Ashley and I researched the newspapers and found it in the Detroit Free Press, the accident. Also, Obar told me at the time, the night we met during our conversation, that he worked on hot rods and was also a street racer, and that he had street raced up in Charlevoix. These 4 kids died in that type of accident. They died in a street racing accident up in Charlevoix. One of them was a girl by the name of Michelle Limbrill. Her name is Shelley. Her nickname was Shelley. It shows in her death notice. It says Shelley right in it. But this is what Michelle Lynn looked like. Now, what's interesting to me about this also, when we were researching, is we come to find out that each one of these 4 kids were under the age of 20 and under. Michelle Limbrill was 18. Obar was around 30 at the time and married. So what was he doing hanging out with these kids? I contacted Michelle Limbrill's family and asked them if I could see the guest log for her funeral. They said they wanted nothing to do with this. I also contacted other individuals who died in the crash to see if they knew who Obar was, who these people hung around with or associated with, so I could talk to them, see if they've ever heard of James Obar, or knew the individual. That hasn't panned out either. I even contacted the police department in Charlevoix and talked to them about this and told them that I thought Mr. Obar may be involved in this and somehow. The sheriff told me he was going to reopen the case and call me back. He never did. And I just let it slide. But for you, those of you interested in my story, I'm giving you this information. I also contacted the Detroit Police Department to see about finding records of assaults that took place around Cass and Bagley in downtown Detroit in the Times Square district around the Leland Hotel where I hung out at a place called City Club, which is still there today. It opened back in 1983 or 1984. The City Club opened. Before that, it was a known hangout for Jimmy Hoffa. The first place they looked for Hoffa when he disappeared was at the Leland Hotel in the Grande Ballroom. I was told by the Detroit Police Department that those records, where they were kept, the room they were kept in, flooded, and that all those records are lost. But there may also be police reports, especially of the pimp's jaw I shattered. I remember seeing the ambulance coming to pick him up, and the police being there and taking a statement from the prostitute. As I was patrolling that night, I watched this guy punch one of his girls in the mouth, and I saw something white go flying out of her mouth. As I got closer and looked down on the not on the pavement, but in the parking lot where they were, next to in front of the building on Cass, right across from the Leland Hotel. I saw that, yeah, he did it, knock a molar right out of her mouth, root and all. It was laying there right on the ground. The guy walked up to me and was trying to, what do you want? You want to get some pussy? Shit like that. And without missing a beat while walking by him, I hit him in the jaw and shattered his jaw. He didn't even have one left. He would have had to get a plastic jaw put in. So I know that this, so I was looking to find this police report. I don't know if I did this in 87 or 88. I don't remember exactly. I accosted a lot of individuals. I also saved a girl from being raped, people from being mugged, and beat up on kids who were jumping and beating up on other people. I was also hoping that, when my book comes out, that any of these individuals that I helped back then would remember me and contact me. And also with those I may have assaulted. When I would beat up on people, I'd reprimand them at the same time. How do you like it when you're being beat on? How do you like having the shit kicked out of you? So I always reprimanded the people I beat the living fuck out of on Halloween. When I was a kid, I was not a very tough kid. I didn't like violence. I hated violence. I could barely watch boxing on TV, but I didn't like being picked on at the same time. But after Tammie died, I had a need to punish people, right? I felt like there was no justice in the world because what my stepmother did to me, I never got I never got protected by the court system. And this woman really fucked up my head as a kid. Mentally, emotionally, and she got to molest me once sexually. Well, her washing me and my brother in our genitals, I would call that sexual molestation, especially the amount of time she would spend washing our genitals. But the day she sexually molested me was the last time I went to see my father for like 3 years after that. Maybe some of you guys think, oh yeah, you slept with your stepmom, oh how cool, blah blah blah, fuck you, man. For me, she was the most disgusting, repulsive fucking thing on earth. I felt like I was putting my penis into a piece of fucking garbage. And after that day, I sometimes feel sick after having sex. I feel, and it all stems from her. It all stems from this. Part of writing the book, I've learned this. I've learned so much about myself and why I feel the way I feel, why I've done the things I've done, why I haven't done certain things I've done, why I've allowed my emotions to rule me pretty much most of my life in relationships. And you're going to learn about that here. That's all I'm going to say on evidence for Obar. The very first video I posted on here, I'm sorry it wasn't up to some people's quality of standards. It wasn't up to mine. Like I said, I had a hard time writing about this book first. I started writing the book on, well, before 2008, before the new year. After quitting college back in 2000 because of my Gulf War syndrome, I was exposed to sarin gas while serving in the Gulf on board the USS Midway, given an overdose, 2 shots of some experimental anthrax and 2 pills from an unmarked bottle. I've had a nervous condition ever since then. You know, it's like my nervous system is stripped. If I get too happy, I get sick. If I get too sad, I get sick. Um, so that's why I quit going to school back then. I was really depressed by 2005, and so I was not having relationships. I quit having sex in 2000. I didn't care for anything or do anything. I had no ambitions. I was getting to the point where I couldn't even taste the food I was eating. I was just getting more and more depressed, and by just before 2008, I was thinking to myself, I'm not living a life. I need either to get on with killing myself or to get on with living. And when I thought about either or, especially killing myself, I thought, man, I don't want to leave this world with this asshole taking credit for the most painful part of my life and what came out of that. It's not something I am proud of, but it's not fucking his. It's not his pain. It's not his suffering. And he has no right to take credit for something I created out of my own pain and suffering. I did not create this to create some comic book character. Obar saw me as a comic book character. I never did. It wasn't until me and him talked the night we talked, that I thought of myself, oh, in a comic book way, how would I see myself? I saw myself as being emotionally dead, so, you can't kill something that's already dead, and something that's already feels dead is not afraid to die, is mainly what it was. It was very Bushido mentality. Um, and So, we talked that night, and we came, I told him how I saw myself and so on and so forth, and kind of what I was. And I painted my nails because I was dead. I picked my face as white. That was mainly because we were mimes, but that was also to express that I was dead. And it was more about being dead inside than being actually dead. So, in shooting that first video, I was trying to write my book in 2008, and I sat at my computer for months unable to do so. Um, you know, Almost like a year. By that summer, though, of 2008, I bought a little tape recorder and started talking it out, and because of my Gulf War syndrome, I was also having these heart palpitations. Sometimes at work, my heart would just race like I just ran a marathon while I'm driving the truck from job to job, and I thought I might die during the process of writing the book, and so I wanted to post a video about it, and I couldn't. It wasn't until around 2009, after talking with my beloved Tammie's older sister Tina, and her reminding me exactly how Tammie died that day. All I could really remember is that she was shot through the throat, killed by Lawrence Hahn, likes to be called Larry. And after that, I started getting my memories back after contacting Tina and talking to Tina. It wasn't pleasant at all, but I shot that video, or I attempted to shoot the video several times. 10 CDs here, over 10 hours of material. When I finally was able to shoot one I liked, it came out to about an hour long. But I found that you could only post something like 10 minutes on YouTube back then, so I cut it down and wrote out the main topics of what I wanted to talk about and kept shooting it over and over again until I got it down to 10 minutes. It never occurred to me that I could post it in segments, part 1, part 2, part 3, and so forth. But you, the viewer, if you're interested, I'll find which one I liked on here, and I'll post it if you like. But that's the main reason why I shot the video. I'm not comfortable in front of the camera, but I've done this enough times now where I am more comfortable. I now have a newer computer, a brand new camera, and a actual computer camera, and I no longer have to shoot on this thing. So that's why I posted the video here first, and I also posted it not just in case I would have died, but I thought it helped me to open up more to people. It'd get me more in touch with myself and allow me to relax more, and it would help with my writing. It kind of didn't. Now the book, writing this book, I've kind of already told you a bit about it, how it's changed me. And got me in touch with my feelings. Well, I would like to say this. A lot of people, you go and see psychologists. I did when I was a kid because of the abuse of my stepmother, and I was having dreams about murdering her or killing myself. Uh, Gotten off track. I've lost my track here. Writing the book. A lot of people see it. I have found that a lot of my anxiety and stuff, and a lot of my problems, maybe if I didn't have Gulf-War syndrome, I really wouldn't have learned how, because my nervous system is sensitive, even with food I eat and stuff, that I wouldn't have come to realize subconsciously how much suppressing all this subconsciously, how much it was really affecting my life. I think the industry, psychology, they throw people on a lot of drugs without really helping them to get to the root of what their problem is. I think if you're a good psychologist, you make people write out their past over and over again. They need to talk to people from the past. When you really learn to confront your problems, it's going to be hell to go through, but after a few years, you learn to, some of these things you can let go of. Some of them you just got to learn to embrace and accept. You learn to accept the pain. It doesn't actually go away. It becomes livable. It becomes bearable. And after a while, you really can start to be happy again. I'm a lot happier person than I was before I wrote my book. I recommend anybody do it. Give me a minute here. I'm just thinking. I have stuff written here. Okay, this pretty much what you have just watched is pretty much a introduction to the story I'm going to tell here next. I'm going to not in great detail. I don't know how long this next video will be. When I originally was going to title this book, pretty much the first title that came to me was Growing Up Damaged in America. I didn't want to put the emphasis so much on myself when I was writing my book, but on growing up damaged. A lot of us, a lot of people end up being physically, mentally, and sexually abused as kids, and it alters us for our whole lives. And I wanted it to focus on that more than just me, which was really probably more than I should have bit off. When I finished the book, even after taking about 200,000 words out of it, oh yeah, also during writing the book, I got hit by a hacker and had to start all over again in 2009. This is the wrong police report card. Okay, I've misplaced it. Yep. Writing the book. So the next video, again, what is going to be I wanted to call it Growing Up Damaged in America at first. friends of mine recommended, like my buddy Chad Kohler from the Navy, recommended that I call it Living in the Shadow of the Crow. It wasn't until after talking with Tammie's sister and getting my memories back, especially, the last and first loving words Tammie said to me, which was, she had just told me she had been holding back everything and hadn't told me the things that were really bothering her deeply, like why she wanted to run away from home. And that the night she did, 2 days before she was murdered, she broke down, finally started, squeezing my hand, crying, and was telling me all the negative things that were going on, all her fears and everything. And one of the last things she said was, I don't want to be like my sister. I don't want to be like that. I want to be loved the way you described it. I want to be loved like that. I want to be loved the way you want to be loved. And then she kissed me. So I titled the book, I Want to Be Loved the Way You Want to Be Loved, to honor Tammie. These were the most loving words I have ever had anyone say to me in my whole life. And why Tammie said them this way specifically was because she knew everything about me. She read the poetry I had written for her sister, and I realized she wanted to be the girl in my poems. And she became the girl in my poems with the things that she said. They don't sound like much, but if you knew our relationship, which I'm going to explain to you, I'm going to talk about, then you'd understand the depth of these words, and that's why my book is so titled, I Want to Be Loved the Way You Want to Be Loved. The second title, The True Story of Erik Da'Raven. I always called myself the Raven on Halloween, or I'd call myself the Raven, the Reaper of Revenge, and sometimes I call it, people would ask me, like, it's the son of Poe. But the name Erik Da'Raven doesn't come from the movie. James O'Barr wrote it down on a piece of, on a bar napkin. It was two of the guys I hung out with at City Club that called me the Raven on Halloween. The two guys happened to be African American. When they came into the club and they saw me, they went, "Yo, what's up, Da'Raven?" Da'Raven. O'Barr heard Da'Raven and wrote it down. That's where it came from. I don't know why he didn't put it in the comic book. That's up to him. As a side note to mention this, a lot of you people have called me crazy on here. After finishing the book, yeah, I'm crazy, but not in the way you think I'm fucking crazy. And a lot of us are somewhat mentally ill in one form or another. I have somewhat of a split personality disorder, due to having my consciousness fractured in the first grade, due to a cruel trick played on me by my stepmother. So I know I'm a little emotionally unstable, not mentally. And my memory is very good I either do remember something or I don't. It's not that I remember things the way I want to. I'm a realist. I always like to look at things for what they are. I don't try to make judgment calls. I don't try to see what I want to see. I just like to see what really is there. And that was like with my relationship with Tam. I just wanted to see somebody for who they really were. And I wanted them to see me for who I really was. Even though I didn't fully understand myself, I was always 100% honest with Tammie, and she was with me. When we got on a topic of something she wasn't comfortable talking about, Tammie would just say, I don't want to talk about it. And I just let it go. I didn't press her on issues. She was very sensitive about being pressed on things. She'd get upset. She had a lot of things she was dealing with, which you're going to learn what. But when O'Barr contacted me that next day after Halloween, he had to remind me who he was and what we had talked about the night before. It wasn't until I talked to O'Barr that night that I realized back in 1988, on November the 1st, that I was fucking nuts. And what I had been doing on Halloween was fucking crazy. Lastly, part of the reason me and O'Barr had a falling out is you know, during these conversations, I got tired of talking to him. You know, he wouldn't give me time to deal, you know, the realization of what I had been doing all those years. I was coming to grips with it, you know, and you know, I was starting to understand, you know, why I showed a lot of these personality traits, but why I would suppress these personality traits in myself. And I felt like two people, and I tried to blend them together that year, and it didn't work out, and I ended up losing a ton of friends, good friends from Camp Oakland over this. So I learned I was a bit nuts, and I must thank Obar for that. But during our conversations, why we had a falling out is, you know, he kept asking all his personal stuff and having me repeat things over. And I'm like, hey, man, look, why do you need all this information? I've already told you things. I want to keep talking over and over again about it. You know, you're just doing a simple little fictional comic book. And he goes, no, 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 no. We're going to do a true story about a real vigilante that only comes out on Halloween. And I had to remind the guy, I mean, you can't fucking do that. And you wanted to put my name on the cover, too. Anybody who would have picked that book up that I accosted or assaulted on Halloween would have saw that, would have sought me out for revenge, or pressed charges against me for assault. Back in 1988, here's a little more proof. I skipped it and forgot to mention this. While at Mount Zion Temple on Clarkston Road in Clarkston, Michigan, Lawrence Hahn was across the street at a store. Everybody, my brother pointed him out, and some girls that knew who he was because he lived in their neighborhood said, that's him over there. At first I could see him, and then all suddenly he disappeared right in front of my eyes. Everybody kept saying he's right there in front of his car. I couldn't see the guy. He even went over there, went in the store, and he was standing next to me, and I could not physically see the guy. That's how bad I wanted to kill this guy all these years. So I found out where he fucking lived. So 1988, I went to Lawrence Hahn's house with a few friends, and license plate off my car. Had them keeping my car idling and driving. Well, I went and knocked on the door. Lawrence Hahn's mother came to the door. I asked if Lawrence was there. She asked who I was. Said I'm an old friend from school. She called to Lawrence down the hallway. He came walking up to the door, and Lawrence was a fucking punk. You know, with the punks in our neighborhood. Comes walking up to the door with this punk fucking attitude and sweat. Yo man, what you want, man? And as soon as he got to the door, I didn't hit him with my fucking hardest hand. I hit him with my other hand. And I hit him so hard, his fucking nose got flat, blood skirted out fucking everywhere. His eyes rolled up in the back of the head. He fell backwards, banged his head on the tiled entranceway. His mother, fucking hands went up to her face. She screamed, and I smiled, went, ha ha ha, and ran away. Jumped in the car, and we went off to City Club that night. I've contacted, I don't know if it's a Clarkston, has their own police department, or Waterford takes care of theirs. I can't remember which one. I contacted both. I found out that they still have the police report on file. And I'm sure his mother gave a good description of me. This would have been before the comic book ever came out. That can also be used as evidence to prove that I'm telling the truth. I'm going to pretty much end this here. The next video I'm going to shoot is, I'm going to call it I Want to Be Loved, The Way You Want to Be Loved, same as my book is called. Either shortened version. It's not going to be anything like my book. When I wrote the book, I wrote pretty much everything I could remember. It came out to 428,596 words. It's really fucking too much. It'd be like 11,000 pages in a paperback. And a lot of people, it's too much to read. And it's hard for me to edit it down, but that's what I'm doing right now. I cannot afford to get this book republished. I cannot afford to pay an editor at this time. Doing this book I've put financial strain on myself, family members. I've sold pretty much all my fucking possessions to finish this book. I've put myself in dire straits. So if you see a commercial attached to this, it's because I am strapped for cash from working on this book. But if I could really get someone to just investigate and see that I am telling the truth, you know, it would really help me. I really want to take back what Obar stole from me and Tammie. He disrespected Tammie and he disrespected me. And in life, a lot of people think it's, they tell you just let it go, let it go. You can lie and tell yourself that shit all fucking day. But really, to really change, to really mature, to really grow, you have to confront your past. It's just the way it is. At least for me, that is the way it is. Maybe it's not for you. But remember, we're human beings. We're all different, okay? We don't all look the same. We don't all have the same interests. And we're not all born the same. Some people are born with more emotions, like myself. I'm extremely sensitive. Some people are born straight. Some people are born gay. Some people may be born psychotic. Some people may be born emotionally inept. We come in a variety of different shapes and colors. And, that's part of what life is. This is my story. Um, the character James Obar used is deep and personal to me. It's part of who I am, and I don't get to escape it like a lot of other people. You can easily suppress your past and not have it thrown back up in your face. I don't get that. Okay? If I'm sitting at somebody's house or visiting someone or out somewhere or flipping through the channels on TV, every so often I get reminded of it. This Crow movie, that Crow movie, someone talking about Brandon Lee, I think about it. Somebody mentions Bruce Lee, I think about it. See a fucking crow flying overhead, I fucking think about it. I can't escape the pain of my past. I've learned to embrace it over these last 5 years. And I am going to take back from Obar. The man is a liar and a fucking thief. That's all he is, and that all he ever has been to me. I'm sorry if I'm upsetting you, Crow fans. That's not my intention. I have nothing against you, Crow fans. Um, but I do have a lot against Obar. All he had to do was keep our bargain, and everything would have been fine. If he wanted to sell the movie rights, all he needed to do was fucking contact me. Period. We could have worked something out. But I don't think I would have let it become a movie. I really wouldn't want that. Didn't want that at all. Comic books, fine. More, no. But that's it. I hope this explains to some of you fans. I don't know how long my other video is going to be. I know this one's, at least 47 minutes and something right now. I hope I've not wasted your time. Thank you for watching, and if you could help me in any way or form, I would really appreciate your help as a fellow human being and as a Gulf War veteran who was honorably discharged. Thank you.